Belle Gunness, originally named Brynhild Paulsdatter Storseth, was born on November 11, 1859, in Selbu, Norway, to Paul and Berit Storseth. She was the youngest among her 8 siblings and underwent confirmation at the Church of Norway in 1874. At the age of 14, Gunness embarked on a journey to New York City, where she sought employment on neighboring farms, primarily milking cows and tending to cattle, with the goal of saving money. In 1881, she arrived in the United States and underwent immigration processing at Castle Garden. It was at this point that she adopted the name Belle, before making her way to Chicago to reunite with her sister, Nellie, who had immigrated several years earlier. In Chicago, Belle Gunness initially worked as a domestic servant while residing with her sister and brother-in-law. Subsequently, she secured employment at a butcher's shop, where her duties involved the dissection of animal carcasses. Belle Gunness was a formidable figure, standing at least 5 feet 7 inches in height and weighing approximately 210 to 250 pounds. Her physical appearance leaned towards the strong and masculine side. In 1884, Belle Gunness entered into matrimony with Mads Ditlev Anton Sorensen. The couple's ventures included ownership of a candy store, which unfortunately met its demise in a devastating fire. Additionally, their residence suffered a similar fate, resulting in substantial insurance payouts for the couple. Tragically, 2 infants within Gunness's household succumbed to a condition known as inflammation of the large intestine, a condition that could be linked to poisoning. Disturbingly, Gunness had secured insurance policies for both these infants and subsequently received sizable insurance settlements following each child's untimely demise. Neighbors raised suspicions due to the fact that Gunness never exhibited any signs of pregnancy. Sorensen had taken out 2 life insurance policies, and a peculiar twist of fate occurred on July 30th, 1900. On that day, both policies were concurrently active, as one was set to expire while the other would come into effect. Tragically, Sorensen passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage. Gunness explained that he had returned home complaining of a headache, to which she administered quinine powder for relief. She later discovered him lifeless, and as a result, she received insurance payouts from both the expiring policy and the newly active one, amassing a total of $5,000. With the money obtained from these insurance settlements, Belle Gunness relocated to Porte Indiana, where she purchased a pig farm. Belle Gunness entered into matrimony with Peter Gunness on April 1, 1902. In a tragic turn of events, just a week later, while Peter was away from their home, his infant daughter passed away under circumstances shrouded in mystery while in Belle's care. 8 months after their marriage, Peter met with a fatal accident, suffering a severe skull injury. Belle provided her account, stating that Peter had attempted to reach for an item on a high shelf when a meat grinder fell, causing catastrophic head trauma. The district coroner initiated an inquiry, assembling a coroner's jury due to suspicions of foul play, but ultimately, no conclusive evidence was found to support the suspicion of murder. Belle, however, received a $3,000 insurance payout following Peter's tragic demise. In 1905, Belle Gunness initiated the placement of matrimonial advertisements in Chicago newspapers. One of these ads received a response from Henry Gerholt, a farmhand from Wisconsin. After making the journey to LaPorte, Gerholt wrote to his family, expressing his contentment with the farm, his good health, and even requested them to send him seed potatoes. However, once communication ceased following this letter, Gerholt's concerned family contacted Gunness. In response to their inquiries, Gunness informed them that Gerholt had departed with horse traders to Chicago. Curiously, she retained his trunk and fur overcoat. The following year, in 1906, John Moe of Minnesota answered one of Gunness's ads. After engaging in correspondence for several months, Moe traveled to LaPorte and withdrew a substantial sum of cash. Strangely, no one ever laid eyes on Moe again, although an occasional carpenter employed by Gunness noticed that Moe's trunk remained within her residence alongside more than a dozen others. This revelation of Belle Gunness's criminal activities came to light in April of 1908 when her farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana was consumed by a devastating fire. Amid the charred ruins, authorities made a chilling discovery: the lifeless bodies of an adult woman, initially presumed to be Belle Gunness, and her 3 children. Subsequent investigations brought to the surface the fragmented remains of at least 11 additional individuals scattered across the Gunness property. Asel Helgelian played a pivotal role in this unfolding nightmare when he contacted LaPorte police. He had stumbled upon correspondence exchanged between his brother, Andrew Helgelian, and Belle Gunness. These letters contained urgent requests for Andrew to relocate to LaPorte, bring money, and keep the move a secret. In response, Asel Helgelian visited the Gunness farm, accompanied by a former hired hand. Their attention was drawn to soft depressions within an area that had been transformed into a hog pen. Upon a brief excavation of one such depression, they discovered a gunny sack containing 2 hands, 2 feet, and 1 head, a horrifying sight that Asel Helgelian recognized as belonging to his missing brother. Further inspection of the site unveiled dozens of these eerie slumped depressions scattered throughout the Gunness yard. Extensive digging and investigation led to the unearthing of multiple burlap sacks containing gruesome remnants, torsos and hands, arms severed from the shoulders, and bundles of human bones encased in loose, jelly-like flesh concealed within trash-covered depressions that had, in reality, become graves. The dismemberment of the bodies followed a macabre pattern: decapitation, removal of the arms at the shoulders, and severing of the legs at the knees. The skulls, found separated from the bodies, exhibited signs of blunt trauma and lacerations. The horrifying revelations continued as it became evident that the ends of the bones had been brutally crushed, almost as though they had been subjected to hammer blows after dismemberment. Additionally, quicklime had been dispersed over their faces and inserted into their ears. In the initial days of investigation, 5 sets of remains were discovered, followed by an additional 6 on the following day, some hidden in shallow graves beneath the original hog pen, while others were found near the outhouse or nearby lake. The grim findings were so numerous that police eventually ceased counting. As a result of these discoveries, the once favorable public perception of Belle Gunness, as portrayed in newspaper accounts, depicting her as a valiant woman who perished in a desperate attempt to rescue her children from the fire, underwent a dramatic reevaluation. Despite initial success in identifying some of the victims, and despite the widespread news coverage that prompted inquiries from families with missing relatives, many of the recovered remains could never be conclusively identified. Ray Lamphere served as both Belle Gunness's hired hand and her occasional romantic partner. In November of 1908, Lamphere faced a conviction for arson related to the fire that had engulfed Gunness's residence. However, in a shocking twist, Lamphere later confessed to a series of grisly crimes orchestrated by Gunness. According to Lamphere's confession, Belle Gunness had craftily placed advertisements in search of male companions, luring unsuspecting men to her farm. Once these men arrived, she would proceed to murder them and seize their possessions. Lamphere disclosed that Gunness had asked him to set fire to her farmhouse, with her own children inside. Moreover, Lamphere insisted that the body initially identified as Belle Gunness was actually one of her victims, deliberately chosen and strategically placed to divert investigators. The brother of one of these victims had issued a warning to Gunness, expressing his intentions to visit the farm and investigate his brother's mysterious disappearance. Lamphere claimed that this impending visit had spurred Gunness to destroy her house, stage her own demise, and subsequently flee. At the time of his arrest, Lamphere was found in possession of John Moe's overcoat and Henry Gerholt's watch, adding further intrigue to the case. A journalist named Edward Beachley was secretly assigned to obtain access to Lamphere's confession and publish it. This led to the emergence of a second, conflicting account provided by Lamphere. According to this alternative version, Lamphere had confided in Reverend Edwin Schell, who transcribed and had Lamphere sign a confession document kept securely in his personal safe. Beachley's attempt to persuade Schell to allow publication of this later confession were met with refusals from Schell and his wife. Nevertheless, another newspaper eventually published a story speculating about the second confession. Concerned for the families of the victims, Reverend Shell eventually offered the confession to Beachley, who subsequently published it. This second confession by Lamphere detailed the gruesome murder of Belle Gunness and her children, allegedly perpetrated with an axe, followed by the bodies being doused in kerosene and set on fire. It also provided insight into Lamphere's role in burying the victims' remains in the garden. However, the core mystery of Belle Gunness' survival or demise remains unresolved due to the discrepancies between the two confessions. The circumstances surrounding Belle Gunness' death were shrouded in mystery and controversy. Despite her official declaration of death, the doctor who conducted the post-mortem examination testified that the headless body found was noticeably shorter and considerably lighter, by roughly 50 pounds, than Belle Gunness. The unsettling absence of an explanation for the missing head only added to the enigma. The question of whether Gunness perished in the fire or successfully fled remains an unsettling uncertainty. The sheriff attributed the notion of her escape to a reporter from the Chicago American, placing the blame on him for disseminating this narrative. Intriguingly, reported sightings of Belle Gunness in the Chicago area persisted long after her supposed demise. Despite these leads, none of them culminated in her apprehension, leaving the truth to remain elusive. In 2008, attempts were made to resolve the mystery through DNA testing on the headless corpse. The aim was to compare the DNA from the remains to a sample from a letter Gunness had sent to one of her victims. Unfortunately, due to the advanced age of the sample, it proved challenging to conduct a conclusive test. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button to join our community. We upload every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. For more content like this, be sure to check out our other videos on the channel. You can also follow us on our other social media platforms for uploads and updates. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.